Welcome to the December the 16th Board of Zoning Appeals. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. For those who are not familiar with the board process, a brief explanation is in order. A detailed explanation is provided at the sign-in desk. The sequence of events is as follows. We'll hear the appeals first. Other businesses of the board will follow the appeals meeting. You're welcome to stay for the entire meeting, but not obligated to do so. All who speak or testify before the board will be sworn in. This may be done either as a group or individually. Our meetings are recorded, so we ask that everyone addressing the board is asked to step to the speaker stand, provide your name and address when first giving your testimony. Anyone speaking may be cross-examined by an attorney. All documents presented for each case will be accepted by the board. The chairman will rule whether the additional items being offered will be accepted or rejected. The persons presenting said case may also withdraw a document. Each case will be presented by a zoning staff member. Once the BZA staff presentation is completed, the appellant will have the opportunity to present their case. Following the appellate's presentation, the chairman will ask anyone who opposed to speak. Next, the board will motion to close the public portion of the hearing. Then the individual board members may ask anyone who has testified to return to the podium for additional questions. Following the board's questions, a motion and a second will be made by the board to either approve or deny the appeal. Finally, respect for this process and one another is paramount. The deliberations for each case is taken seriously by the board, and likewise it is the expectation that respect be accorded to anyone regardless of any emotion that may be involved. No disruptive behavior will be tolerated. This extends to all who testify as well as members of the audience. Anyone being disrupted will be asked to leave the hearing room. Thank you for your patience and your attention. And we need to do roll call.
Mr. Bartolt?
Here.
Mr. Martin?
Here.
Mr. Price?
Here.
Mr. Roberto?
Present.
Mr. Reininger?
Here.
Okay, we will swear everyone in that's going to plan on speaking today. If you plan on speaking today before the board, please stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear and affirm that you will tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth in matters before the Board of Zoning Appeals? Say, I do. Thank you. You may be seated. We are going to change the order of our standard presentation, and we're going to approve the minutes for the August 26th, 2015. Anyone on the board have any questions or concern about the meeting notes for that day?
I'll move that we approve the minutes of the August 26th, 2015 meeting.
Okay, a motion has been made. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Reininger spoke first. We'll give it honors. All right. The next we have the approval for the meeting notes of September the 29th, 2015.
Do you want to approve or have everybody say aye on this one?
Oh, yeah, I guess we'll get everybody counted in. So can you go roll call for me on the last meeting notes?
Mr. Bartolt?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mr. Reininger? Mr. Roberto?
Yes.
I'll move that we approve the minutes of the September 29th meeting as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second?
Can I make one comment?
Certainly.
Found an incomplete sentence. I don't know if we need to. On page 2, last paragraph. It's about the second or third sentence. Question was raised if both of the existing buildings will be demolished and Mr. Dragan, period. Do you see that? So it looks like it's. Okay.
Staff can go back and listen to the recording and complete that sentence.
You want us to hold off approving these notes then?
If you would prefer, we can do that.
I think we should. Thank you. So we'll table that. Do we need to make a motion to table that or just?
I can withdraw my motion, maybe. Is that the best way to do it?
Let's do that then. Please.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. We'll move on to the cases at hand, the case at hand. Case number BZA 2015-14 is for a variance for accessory structure, location, and height. It is noted out of the article section 10.2.1, section C, and 10.2.3, section B. The location is at 3130 West Kemper Road. Staff, do you have a presentation?
Yes, sir, we do. The case before you is a request for a variance for height and location of an accessory structure on a residential property. The applicant, Mr. Paul R., resides at 3130 West Kemper Road. You have seen this case or something very similar to it before you in the past. Originally, the applicant was granted a variance by this board back in 2006 for a height and location variance for this same structure, 30 by 60 structure actually, and 18 feet high for a pole barn. The zoning certificate expired on that before construction occurred. The applicant came back to this board in June of this year requesting a variance for a little bit larger of a structure. It would have been 38 by 60 and then 19 feet high, located again in the front yard of the property. And that variance request was denied by this board based on a known use violation of the property. On October 27th of this year, the applicant applied for and was denied a zoning certificate for the construction of 1,750 square foot accessory structure located in the front yard of his residential property. The site that we are looking at tonight is a flag lot located on West Kemper Road, highlighted on the screen in yellow. It is zoned R4 and completely surrounded by R4 zoning. The site plan provided to staff does show the accessory structure here towards the front of that property. A schematic was sent in as well. It will be a 35 by 50 structure. This shows that it's 14 feet tall. That is not completely accurate. The side of the structure is 14 feet tall, but staff is required to measure this. Let me get my laser pointer so you can see this on here, to roughly this point here. It's mid distance between the peak and the bottom of the roof line is where we measure to, and that actually puts us at about 16.9 feet high, so nearly 17 feet tall. Give you an idea of the elevations that are proposed. The letter that was submitted with this appeal indicated that the facade of this structure will match more closely to that of the residential property. So we may want to have a discussion with the appellant about whether this schematic is accurate or if there will be another facade placed on this. Looking at the property, this is actually looking down the driveway of the flag lot. It's a little difficult to see. This is not the appellant's residence. It's actually back here behind this. About halfway down the driveway, you can see that there's a line of trees that I would imagine in spring and summer, warmer months, we would see less of the residential property here. The proposed accessory structure would be located here where you see a trailer currently. Looking at the residence property, you can see that the topography is somewhat hilly behind the property, leaving really this front and side yard the only realistic option for construction of a structure of this size. And again, this is looking at where that structure would be located with the tree line here to the right, buffering from the residential property to the south. I'm not going to read this section to you because it was outlined in the staff report, but One thing that staff did want to point out is that we don't feel that the character of the neighborhood would be substantially altered with the issuance of this variance. It seems to me, it's my understanding that the use violation discussed and identified at the June BZA meeting has been corrected. It was stated so in the letter from the appellant, and I'm sure he can speak more clearly to that if you have more specific questions. He actually listed the address where all of his equipment was moved. So if you have some questions about that, I do not have any outstanding zoning violations on record at this time. So no new complaints about a use violation on this property. Again, the placement of the proposed structure is kind of in that front yard. It is the lowest point on the property. So hopefully we're kind of keeping, even though they're requesting a taller structure, we're kind of keeping it out of view, and it should be lined pretty well on the south and east by the existing vegetation that is there. That said, staff does recommend approval of the requested variance with the following conditions and also a note. The condition that the applicant must demonstrate that all other sections of the Colerain Township zoning resolution will be met, including but not limited to setback standards according to section 10.2.3C of the zoning resolution. And staff would just like to note again that the use of the property must be maintained as residential in nature only. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions from the board.
Thank you. Okay. Any board questions? No. All right, is the applicant present?
Yes, sir.
Can you please come to the podium and give us your address and name?
Paul R., 3130 West Kemper Road.
And give your presentation, please.
Yes, sir. I was like she said, I was in here earlier, and you guys had I was running or had my trucks at my home. I've since moved them down to a warehouse that I've been dealing with for 18 years. So I had originally had them there and had took them out of there because I had a lot of vandalism happening. But I rectified that situation by putting privacy fences. And I just trying to get at this point just basically someplace to keep I got a lot of other things that I need to keep out of the weather.
Okay.
So I appreciate you guys thinking about it. Thanks.
Anyone else speaking in favor?
Jeff R., 3160 West Kemper. I live directly across Private Drive and have the most direct line of sight to where the proposed structure is going to be. I have no opposition to it at all. It would get his Bengals van out of my sight. So not a Bengals fan,
Okay.
but no objections here. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else speaking in favor?
I'm Susan Flam. I live at 3120 West Kemper Road. I live at the house just before you get to his house on the driveway. We are before you get to the tree line. For the most part, you cannot see past that tree line, and even during the winter, it's mostly hidden as well, and it's kind of in the back corner, so it's really not visible. And we have no problem with him building it.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else speaking in favor? Anyone speaking in opposition? I see none.
I'll move that we close the public portion of the hearing.
We have a move.
I'll second that.
Okay. First and second, and roll call, please.
Mr. Bartold,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mr. Reininger,
Aye.
Mr. Roberto.
Yes. Okay, board questions. Mr. Martin?
Just a couple of quick questions. First of all, the height is a little over the 15 feet, but it's not taller than the principal residence. Is that right?
I can't say that with certainty. I don't know the height of the principal structure. My assumption is no. The principal structure is a two-story structure,
Right. Okay.
and this would be a tall one-story.
I did drive by the property a couple of times, and I will be honest with you, I'm very sympathetic to the location. I think based upon my visual inspection, that's probably the logical place to put the building. It concerns me, however, that the picture that is there, and I drove by the premises on 2 separate occasions at different times of the day, that white box truck has been there.
That's my personal work vehicle.
Okay. That's, so you, because last time you were here, you were saying, okay, but
Yeah, the other ones are that's like my personal work vehicle that I do all my measures and my installs out of.
because I don't think that's if I read the zoning regulations correctly, I don't think you can have that on your residential property.
I'm allowed to have a work vehicle.
Mr. Art, would you come up to the podium, please?
I believe I'm allowed to have a work vehicle, sir, just like
I don't-
anybody else has a work vehicle.
There's a maximum though on it, and I think it's a 1-ton vehicle. That's my concern. I'm very sympathetic to the location, as long, the height variant, it is a significant variance, but I can live with that. But the thing I'm mostly concerned about is that you're not continuing to use this as a place of business. That's the main concern. I think that's what really got you in trouble last time.
Oh, yeah, no, I can appreciate that. Basically, that's the vehicle I work out of.
Right?
I have no other vehicle to work out of. I was under the impression that I'm allowed to have one personal work vehicle on the property.
I do not believe that's true, and I will, let's see here. I wish I had that in front of me.
I literally could work out of no other vehicle.
I understand that. Let me see here. I'll tell you what, why don't you go to somebody else and I'll find this section and I'll come back to it. How's that?
Certainly. Mr. Price?
One of my questions was also about the height of the house, but that's been answered. The other one is, if you can go back to the picture of the structure, the diagram of the building. I believe it's a 14-foot tall, but you're looking for you're saying that you want a little extra height to get your RVs.
No, the
and
14
your,
foot is the wall height, the 17 foot is the peak, and that's what they have to measure.
what are the doors going to be then?
Doors are going to be 12 foot.
Okay.
Yeah, but my truck's 11 foot 4 inches.
So why are you needing the extra variance then? Just for the height of the structure because of the?
Yeah, because the height of how they look at it, it's 15 foot total, which is your wall height plus half the distance from the wall height to the peak.
Okay.
So if I was to build anything less than 14 foot, I would never get a 12-foot garage door because it has to make the
roll up.
yeah the roll up. Yeah, there's no other. And I looked at every other option. This is a truss-free building, so it's old barn-like.
Yeah.
And there'd be no other way for me to get that or my RV or my boat. Anything wouldn't fit
Okay.
that I'm planning on storing in it.
That was my only questions for you. Thank you.
Thanks.
If I can go, I've got this, it's on page 149, it's section 13.7.3. It says, no truck, construction equipment, commercial trailer, or other vehicle of a business or industrial nature shall be parked upon a residential lot except a 1-ton pickup truck with a maximum length of 18 feet and a maximum height of 7 feet.
Well, any type of like larger 2,500 truck, like I got a 2,500 diesel out there that it's like any other diesel on the road. That means nobody could ever have one of those in their driveway.
That's not true. That, I think, would qualify as a 1-ton pickup truck.
No, it's a 1.5 ton pickup truck, a 2,500.
Well, then technically you'd need a variance for that as well. That's what I'm saying. I'm suspicious.
Like I said, I've already moved all my other vehicles down, and it was actually a blessing because I'm big on keeping track of my mileage and everything. So it saved my guys from coming to mine, driving down to my shop. So it's like it was.
That doesn't happen anymore.
No, not at all.
Because I'm supposed to be suspicious by nature sitting here.
Oh yeah,
so-
no, I understand that, sir.
So my suspicion was that the need for the height of the building, and maybe that was what we were talking about just a moment ago, was because of that box truck.
Well,
And
no, that is to get my personal work truck, which now you're telling me I can have, but that's the only reason that. And then my RV's 11 foot, so I'm trying to
saw
get
the
myself
Bengals
a
RV.
little bit.
That was there too. I saw that. Well, again, I'll defer to staff on this, but the way I read that section, that truck is technically not allowed to be on a residential premise.
And I could also move that down to my shop also. I mean, I've got a personal vehicle that I could.
So if you move that truck out, do you really need the height variance is the question?
Yeah, because of my boat and my RV, yes.
18 feet? You need-
Well, 17 foot. That's not the door height. I mean, you
Gutter line is 14 feet.
yeah. My wall height is 14 foot to get a 12-foot door.
Okay.
So the minimum door I could have is 12 feet to safely get my RV and my boat in the structure.
If you're willing to move that truck out of there, I'd be willing to go along with this, because I'm very sympathetic to your plight. I am. I think that, you know, it does say not in a front yard, but I think in this case, that's the logical place to put it. As long as it's not going to be used for commercial purposes.
Yeah, and if that's all I gotta do is move that out, that's, like I said, it's worked out to my favor as it is, so I appreciate it.
And I don't know if you're going to address the other issue the staff raised about the facade of the building.
Oh, the
I'd be
facade has
interested.
already been purchased. It's vinyl siding that was purchased when I built my home. It's the exact same stone that was on the front of the house. I own a window company, so obviously manufacture my own windows, same windows. It'll look virtually identical to my home.
Okay. I'm finished then. Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Bertle?
So you're saying there's going to be like a stone wainscoting
Rather
around
than the stone facade, the face of the building, as you're pulling down the driveway looking at it, will look, can you go back to my house?
so the front of this new building?
Yeah, I don't know if you can zoom in, but anyway, that's, yeah, the lower front with the two windows, that's all the veneer stone. And that's already been,
And then the vinyl siding is going to
and the vinyl siding will match exactly, same coil trim, same windows, same,
Yeah. Okay.
it'll look exactly like my house.
And I did, just so the board might have a question about the roof pitch, I contacted the pole barn manufacturer to see if there could be a lower roof pitch to help get this whole building, you know, down within reason, and they said no, 4 and 12 is the.
Yeah, 412 is, I've been in construction my entire life. 412 is, on a building this size, you couldn't do anything less, besides going with the flat roof, yeah.
I mean,
it's-
there's
and then
distribution
even with the flat
warehouses
roof, then I'd have to raise
be
the,
1 and 12 feet
Yeah.
very easily. But this particular manufacturer did say 4 and 12 was their minimum. The only other questions were already brought up about door heights and what you're storing in the facility, so I think that's it.
Mr. Reiner?
Mr. R, and also staff, maybe just for my clarification, in your letter, Mr. R, you say you're requesting a height variance from 15 to 18 feet. In the case history, it's 16.7 feet height, and is that because you were measuring from different points, the apex
yes,
of the roof? or the,
she goes to the midpoint.
to the
Yes, sir,
midpoint?
that's exactly why. He's requesting essentially more than what he needs based on the way that staff is required to measure that height.
So in that instance, the variance from the residential, in the residential is 15 feet. Is that the apex, or is that?
That's that same measurement point that I'm required to,
Okay, so we're looking at a variance of 1.7 feet.
yes, sir.
Thank you. Then the overall height will be at 18 feet, is that correct? The apex, I mean, the very top of that
I
bone?
believe it's close to 18
It's
feet.
just shy of 18, I believe it is. I'm sorry, I don't.
I'd have to go back to my math,
It's
but
1.7, 3.4, it'll be 17.4. Because if you're going halfway up that apex is,
I have 17.5.
And just,
Well, you got to sort that out before I know that.
I've rounded to the nearest half, all right?
it is for recreational vehicles, boats, RVs, and
yeah, I
that.
got boats, RVs, CDs, I got a lot of toys, sorry.
It's not, in the drawings, how you're going to handle the watershed off the roof? Are you downspouting it into a?
Oh, downspouting into the creek that runs, basically it's that entire 36 acres next to me runs on the creek in front of me.
Thank you. No other questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
I really don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm willing to make a motion that we approve the request. I don't even think I need to amend it because there's already a statement in there by staff that he'd be in compliance with all the other zoning regulations. But you understand what we mean by that, moving the truck. Okay. So with that, I'll move that we approve it as recommended by staff.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Barthold,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mr. Reininger, Mr. Roberto.
Aye. Motion is passed. Thank you.
Your brother's not a Steelers fan, though, is he? Is he? Oh, my goodness.
Proud one, that's why we drove separate.
Oh, man.
You approved it? Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, next on our agenda, let me get my agenda back. Do we have any unfinished business?
No, sir.
Next meeting is scheduled for January 27th, 2016. Administrative matters, each of the board members have been presented an amendment to the zoning, and would like for us to review it. And he wants to discuss this now, or what do you want to do on that?
This is really up to the board. This was in response to some discussions we had over the last couple of months about some of the signage variances that have been requested and generally approved by this board without a whole lot of question. This is just an attempt at a draft to spark the discussion. One thing that I did want to point out is the difference between section 15.8.2 and 15.8.3. After spending some time thinking about this, I thought it might be more appropriate to have this only in 15.8.3. Based on, and it's really the big difference is the not only the overall the top amount of square footage in 8.2, it's 100 square feet for a wall signage. In this section, it's 150 square feet, but that is based on the difference in zoning districts. So this is completely up for this board's discussion, and this is just a first attempt at the wording that hopefully gets at what the conversation was a couple of months ago. However you may want to modify this, staff can work with that. The intention is to then present this memo to the zoning commission and request that they initiate this text amendment. So they would have some discussion about it as well before it would then move through the entire process of zoning commission initiating, regional planning commission, zoning commission again, board of trustees.
So this is to address the multiple signs on a building, is that?
It was to address the signs on multiple faces of a building which are not necessarily directly adjacent to the right-of-way, but might be adjacent to, the entrance, which acts as a right-of-way into. So think of AT&T up there by, it's on Colerain at, no, not at Stone Creek, down by the old Walmart. That entrance drive, there's a traffic light there. It's almost like the road's extending right there by Cross County. And this board approved signage on that entrance side because it was actually more visible than the Colerain Avenue side. So those types of, and that's where we need to make sure we're careful of the wording so that we're clearly identifying the difference between that and, say, a building that just has a whole bunch of tenants that face different directions.
Sort of like the same one that happened over here at Honey Bay.
Right.
Or
I
they
was-
use the
State
crosswalk.
Yeah.
The state.
Oh, the Breezeway, the NovaCare case, correct.
So does this also count, like, for example, when Burger King came in and said, this isn't really a street, it's, an entrance, can we have a sign on this side? Does this count that as well?
That's what that would be the intention of this, because if you think like Stone Creek, that Havercos Court, I think is what is that street? It's Havercos Lane Court, something like that. That actually ends at a certain point and it becomes private. And so if a business is right at the end of that and they're not technically on the right of way, this would.
I'm not sure how I feel about this, so don't misinterpret my question as one way or another, but the 150 square feet, would that be for the total of the two signs, or would the 150 feet be limited to each sign?
I actually had that same thought.
Okay.
The way that I have it written here, it would be per sign.
Okay.
And it's certainly up for discussion because I had considered that as well. The challenge is if you're facing Colerain Avenue, you probably want to use your 150 feet on that sign. But that's certainly something that I think should be discussed by this board. If you'd like to add something to this paragraph 5, if this is in fact how you'd even like it to be addressed, you can always add a restrictive maybe it's a half, because that 150 feet is only if you have at least 150 feet of frontage.
Right.
So this is based on the frontage. If you've only got 25 feet of frontage, you're only going to get a sign that's scaled to that. What we see in another area, and forgive me, I can't remember exactly where it is in the zoning code, but instead of it being 1 square foot per linear frontage, it's a half a square foot. So that may be something you want to consider. It is something that does show up in other places in the zoning code.
Yeah, I think personally we should have some defining
For the second sign. Yeah.
I agree.
what it may be. I mean, I'm okay with the half-foot verbiage, pull it from somewhere else and tack it into that section. Anybody else have a thought?
I think that would solve my question.
Same.
Some guidance as well.
Yeah, and then they can come to appeal that if they want to go larger.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
I can add that. One other thing, the way that this is written is that that there's an entrance to the building on this this driveway. I guess we'll call it a driveway just for ease of use here. Is that something that this board wants to see? Is that there's actually an entrance on that side? Because, for instance, in the AT&T case, there was not an entrance on that side.
I personally don't think that that's necessary because I know that the steakhouse, and I can't remember the name of it, has it on all 3 sides. They have it on the main road, they got it on the access road, and they have it facing down Corona. Now it's a different district, but
Yeah, I can't speak to that specifically. That may be the signage, and that may have been agreed upon in the FDP.
right. And I think that's what it was.
So
therefore,
that would have kind of bypassed staff's ability to write that zoning permit anyway.
What if you substitute the word frontage for entrance? I mean, or I don't know if that technically wouldn't be frontage, but exposure or something. Because I agree. I don't think you need the word entrance there. Because I'm thinking like in the Burger King situation, that I think the entrance is actually
the side of the building,
on the other side of the building. Yeah.
not facing Corona.
Right. So I don't know that the word.
Parking lot side,
It's the adjacent or the access road.
driveway side, whatever you
Or
want.
that access driveway.
Yeah.
Okay, I can work with that about, I'll look through and make sure that we don't have a definition of what frontage is.
Okay.
Because then if we do not, then I can, as a zoning administrator, I can interpret that how I need to.
I know this is coming up in the past where we call something frontage, but they're looking at treating something as a front yard, but in actuality, in my definition, it would be the side yard because it's not at the front door of their home or it's not the driveway. So there's some of that's a little still muddy in our book that we can certainly use some clarity. So I don't want to create more, but so the more we can clarify it, the better.
Sure. The other question that I thought was worth discussing is the term primary access drive. It does leave a little bit of discretion for your zoning administrator to determine whether or not that would be considered a primary access drive.
Yeah,
Is
there a
this
definition-
board okay with that, essentially?
definition of that term?
No, not that I'm aware of. I can double check very quickly, but
I actually like that because I think that takes care of that breezeway situation because that really wasn't a primary access drive. So I like that actually.
Well, but would we ever get a case where somebody argues secondary versus primary? Is it a pickup truck? Is it not a pickup truck? You know what I mean?
that's where you'd be leaving the discretion to your zoning administrator. And if your zoning administrator is not comfortable with it, it would then sit in front of this board for discussion.
Yeah. I'm okay with that.
And then what about?
As long as you're the zoning administrator, you don't leave.
That's on record, right?
You notice you didn't answer.
I'm here for the foreseeable future.
Uh-oh.
January 1st.
Well, I guess the other issue then is it says commercial center or complex. What if you have a freestanding building that's not part of the complex? Does that then come to us?
And again, that's where I think there'd be some discretion to the zoning administrator. Let's say it's an outlot. if it functions as, my interpretation at this point would be if it functions as a part of that complex where somebody would say, the old Walmart. I would consider when you go into Staples, that's part of that old Walmart complex.
What about if it's a standalone property?
Well, that one is.
Say it again.
Staples is a standalone, that's what she's referencing.
No, I mean.
Staples
I'm
is
not
an outlaw.
I'm not in a mall, strip mall like that. I've got my little.
Then that would need,
Shop,
that would need to come to the BZA. That's something that would still come to this board for discussion. That's not what we're attempting to address with this.
Yeah, You're broadening the scope without actually over-broadening, by putting this verbiage in there, commercial center complex. Then when those individual cases come in, they still would come before the BZA.
Right.
That's the intention, and that's what that's.
Not completely.
Well, I'm hoping that we're not opening a can of worms with this. That's.
Yeah,
I think you've done a great job, personally. I like the.
I like it.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm taking from this is that I'm going to change entrance to frontage, assuming I don't find a definition for frontage. And we're going to add in here kind of the limitation that this particular sign would be limited to a half a square foot per each linear foot of the frontage on that particular side of the property. Okay, I will work with that. How would this board like me to proceed in taking this to the zoning commission? Would you like to see the final text before we do that?
I personally would.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll tackle that in January then, meaning that we will look to initiate that in February to start that whole gamut of public hearings.
So around November it should be done.
Little sooner than November, but yes, it should be completed by November if everybody's on board with it.
One other thing, and that's why I didn't vote for the State Farm sign. It's so far away from the primary access road. Do we want any kind of? I mean, what's the limit? I mean,
Well, and that's where I put in here immediately adjacent, and again, there's going to be that discretion. So if, in the case of State Farm, I don't consider that immediately adjacent to that access drive.
I'm just saying somebody would.
But that would be my discretion. I could certainly say, well, I consider that immediately. It's the first building. I can write a zoning certificate. So that's where you have to trust me.
We do. With a twinkle and a smile in your eye.
I did find two different definitions for frontage. If you have your zoning code in front of you, page 188, paragraph 81 and 82. Frontage for a building shall mean the length of an enclosed building facing a public or private street.
You have a different book than we have. Because my page 188 does not say frontage anywhere.
It's 190,
Okay.
number 82, 81 and 82, yeah.
We're all on the same page, even though we're on different pages. We found frontage
We're in the
buildings.
same church at this point.
Okay, good. All right, we're in the same building. Frontage streets shall mean the distance for which the front boundary line, so that's not relevant to what we're,
No.
No, but the front, I think 81,
81, yeah,
Yep,
frontage
that's-
building.
Just front.
that takes care of the problem, I think.
Well,
They're both facing a street.
Right.
but it's not a street. That's exactly what we're
Trying to overcome.
trying to overcome here. So,
Yeah, like, for example, again, behind Honeybake, where everybody drives past behind Kroger's, it's not really a street, but there's a lot of traffic.
But it's an access lane. I mean, that would be up to her.
and then that would be, do I consider that a primary access lane? Is that, can I use that?
Can't you just say, buildings located within a complex which has an elevation immediately adjacent to and facing the primary access road? It's the building elevation,
That'd be all right.
whether it's got a door on it or not.
Okay. How does the rest of the board feel about that?
Great suggestion.
Okay.
Yep. So we got him on board.
Okay. I will work with that, unless there's any other commentary from the board here. I will work with that and bring that back to you in January. Same format here with this memo, and we'll potentially move to send this along to zoning commission.
All right, perfect.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We got a note in here, calendars.
Do you have calendars in your packet?
No.
Did we print calendars?
Calendars is off the agenda.
Calendars I can send to you via email, if you're okay with that. One, I think the only change was going to be December again, moving it up a week. And that will actually put us the week of Christmas. It'll be the same week again, and say it again.
December 21st.
December 21st will be that meeting instead of the 28th.
Okay.
And that will be the same week as the zoning commission hearing that month as well. The only other change on there was a recommendation by staff to move the meeting time from 7 p.m. to 6 p.m., but that's for the board's discussion. Last night, the zoning commission did move their meetings for 2016 to 6 p.m. If that matters to the board.
It doesn't affect me, but I know that some of the board.
6:30?
It's crap.
This is for the board to discuss.
Probably coming from Mason.
I mean, 6:30 would much be, and I'm Blue App, so it just depends on 275 at 5 o'clock.
6:30 at the earliest, probably.
I can meet anytime you'd like. I'm retired.
6:30 has been the recommendation that staff.
6:30 is
That
perfectly
extra
fine.
half hour earlier.
Perfectly fine. We're moving in the right direction.
I know it makes for a long day for you.
We'll see what 2017 brings. Thank you. I will email those to you,
All right, and
So the January meeting will be at 6:30 though. Is that right?
that is true.
and we will advertise it as such.
Okay.
Need to adjust
How many
my
cases for next month?
meeting calendar.
Just one. We have one case next month.
Any motion to adjourn?
I'll move that we adjourn.
Motion? You got a second?
Second.
Motion second. Roll call.
Mr. Bartolt,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mr. Reininger,
Aye.
Mr. Roberto.